Hello everyone. So in this video, I'm going to discuss the structures, the answers for the questions being asked by UPSC in optional PSIR paper means 2021. Before I discuss the paper being asked, I'll give the overview that how we should prepare for this particular paper. Because the paper 2 is seen as a bit more dynamic than paper 1. So approach to prepare paper 2, we'll see the questions being asked by UPSC, how we can guess that what are the important areas on which there can be a question, but in this particular year, though it is very difficult to predict, and we should touch almost all the important topics of our syllabus. Okay. And the way UPSC is framing the questions these days, with every question have so many subparts, and they try to integrate the topics from different sections. So it is becoming more and more, it is not possible to leave any particular section. So importance needs to be given to almost every section of your syllabus. So still we'll see what kind of questions being asked, why these questions being asked, and what can be the best possible line of action on which we should have given the answer. Okay, so if we see the syllabus of our paper 2, it constitutes both the static part and the dynamic part, and the way UPSC has framed the question paper, it's a good mix of both static and the dynamic part of our syllabus. So paper 2, a bit more inclined towards current affairs, that is the paper 1 part B, the subsection, which is much more dynamic to prepare. Okay. But still, if a serious aspirant just focusing the newspaper after covering the basics, if they have the basic understanding of the issue, and if a person is just following the newspaper, person can answer almost all the questions which are being asked by UPSC from the current perspective. Okay. So there is nothing in the paper which has been nothing in the paper which is something being asked, which is something unexpected. So paper is on the expected line, and it's a good mix of static and dynamic part, and just so these are misnomers that someone needs to focus too much on IDSA, ORF websites to learn so many things from this. Yes, building good vocabulary, that reading those good articles will help to build the vocabulary, but if a student is reading one or the two newspapers only, then also person can do justice with the optional paper of PSIR. So seeing the questions, I'll try to touch the dynamic part in this particular video, and for the static part, we'll share the PDF of the sample answers of all the questions of both paper 2 and paper 1. Another mistake being committed by the students of PSIR many times, which I have seen, is focusing too much on the IR part of paper 2 and focusing more on these Western political thought and thinkers in paper 1 part A, not realizing that every section demands equal importance. So if it is theories and Western political thought is important, similar importance needs to be given to the IGP part, that is Indian government and politics. So there's an equal weightage of all the sections. So do not hold this policy that we need to focus too much on this. Yes, thinkers' thought forms the basics of this subject, but equal importance needs to be given to all the sections. Okay, so if theory part is important, then IGP part is equally important. Similarly, if the India and the world, IR part is important. Then paper 1 part A, the concepts of IR, the comparative politics. Every section holds equal importance and we can't afford to ignore any of the section. So starting from the questions being asked by UPSC, first question, 3 parts. First question, 5 parts, 150 word each. Seeing the nature of the question, a direct question being asked, discuss the political economic approach. So I'll share the PDF in which there will be a sample answer for this particular question. Discuss the political economy approach to the comparative analysis. So a direct question by UPSC, 10 marks. Okay, 150 word. You do not need to dig deep in this approach. Just 150 word, whether you have an understanding of the political economic approach or not. Similarly, first B, political parties and pressure groups are sine qua non of democracy. Okay, without this, democracy can't survive. A direct part, the direct question again, the challenge is not answering these questions. The challenge is to complete the first question in the stipulated time, because you have to write so many things within 150 words. Okay, so answer writing requires a lot of hard work and lot of practice, and it will come from practice only. Third is Marxist approach to the study of IR. Marxist approach to the study of IR has lost its relevance in the post-Cold War era. So again, the top question based on concepts. You understand how dynamics has changed in the post-Cold War world, era of globalization, what exactly is the Marxist approach, and why we are saying the Marxist approach, that is IPE, International Political Economy, has lost its approach. So a question based on concept, you understand the concept or not, and what exactly is said by Marxist scholars regarding the post-colonial theories of state. Okay, so what is the view of the Marxist scholar, what is international political economic approach, and why we believe that this approach has lost the relevance, and who emphasized that this approach has lost the relevance? Liberals. Okay, modernization perspective, that under the forces of globalization, Marxist approach has lost the relevance. Again, the challenge is to finish it in 150 words. So do refer the PDF to see the simple answer for the question, that how to compile simple answers, that how to compile in 150 words. What can be the best possible words we need to add in questions like these. So first question always very challenging, that is to finish it in that particular time, because normally what happens is I can tell from my own experience of writing mains, sometimes compiling first question, because in the beginning the mind is not working that fast, and our hand is also, we are not in a somewhere it takes time before we start writing fast. So many times compiling first question takes 50 to 60 minutes, and we are just left with 120 minutes more to complete 4 more questions. So that's why always it is very difficult to compile the first part of section A, which is always mandatory to write. Okay. So if we see the third part of first question, again a conceptual question, but a direct question from the syllabus, nothing technical in this. Then comes, what measures have been taken by the UN for its reforms? What measures have been taken by UN for its reforms? So it is in the news. So a current based question, not about the structures, not about the mandate of UN. Okay, direct question from the current, because India is looking forward for what? India is emphasizing on reforms. India is looking for permanent membership. So many things which were in the news, that what measures been taken by the UN for its reforms, because Third word is pushing forward for reforms, and especially India's stand is this is high time to make UN inclusive. Okay, but they have not asked what is the stand of or what India has been done, what measures have been taken by UN itself for its reforms, not the steps taken by the members, UN itself, UN as an organization, what steps being taken by UN for its reforms. Okay, so you should be aware of the facts that these many things are being done by UN for its reforms. A newspaper, if you are reading your newspaper, easily you can write an answer for this question. Seeing the fifth part, proposals made by India, direct question, in the recent climate change conference in Glasgow. Okay, direct question. What are the, directly there was 5 proposals made by India. So again, a very direct question, what are the proposals being made, right? So completion of this, it's not the content which will be a challenge for the student, completion of this in that particular time period, because if you see the number of questions you have to do and you divide it by time, so technically you have so if you see the number of questions you have to attempt, that it is 5 you have to attempt and you have 180 minutes to complete the paper. So if we divide 180 by 5, we are left with 36 minutes for every question. And if your first question itself will take 60 minutes, then I hope you can understand how challenging it will be to complete the rest of the paper. These are the real challenges which you will face, which every candidate will face while writing mains. So when we prepare, we sometimes get carried away with the preparation and we try to remember more and more content. Sometimes knowing more content will not going to help you because you do not have the time to replicate the same everything in your mains. So preparing for this UPSC exam and writing your mains are 2 different ball games altogether. The sooner you will realize this, the better it will be, and you can channelize your preparation for your mains in a better way by focusing only on the important things and the part. So if 36 minutes are required for every question, then you can see, then we have just 7 minutes to complete every sub part. Okay, and it takes more than sometimes, because once you start, you need to think, you need to frame in a best possible way. It takes a lot of time. So these are the real challenges of writing the mains. Okay, so do not be too worried about the content thing. You can see the UPSC is asking very specific things. So no need to emphasize, no need to go too much into IDSAs and ORF. The views of the scholars which are coming in the newspaper is more than enough to answer any question which will be asked by UPSC in your mains if you have a good understanding of the static part of your syllabus. For this, you need to refer the standard books only. And I hope you are aware of the standard books. Seeing the second question. Post-colonial state was thought of an entity that stood outside and above society as an autonomous agency. Discuss the emergence of neorealism, theories of IR, direct question. Neorealism and its basic tenets, and complex interdependence, again direct question. Okay, and the role of transnational actors in the international system. Not going into the direct question, we'll take the questions from the current part. Okay, so again a direct question. Third question is also a very direct question, straightforward question. Impact of electoral system shaping the party system and references, and what is globalization and why there is intense debate about globalization and its consequences. Debate about globalization, different scholars holding different views about globalization. Direct question from the syllabus. Now see the third question. Oh, sorry, this is the third only, but the last part. Another challenge which comes in the mains is sometimes you are aware of first, in every question might be you are aware of 2 parts but not the third one. So selections of question is sometimes becomes the challenge. Now critically examine the decline of United States. Here you need to focus the word, that is critically examine, means they have not asked this question, comment that the US hegemony has declined in the world politics. If the language of the question would have been, yes, US hegemony, comment US hegemony has declined. So then you have to substantiate your answer with those points which will justify, yes, US hegemony has declined. Here it is critically examine the decline of US as a hegemon and its implications for the changing international political order. So here the question is critically examined. Now the thing is whether hegemony of US has declined or not. Now here this is a conceptual question. You should have a well understanding of the world politics. You understand various dimensions and everything should come in your mind in those 6-7 minutes where you will able to substantiate your answers with those points. UPSC answer writing is about points. Bit of difference between answer writing in GS and your GS IR and in your optional IRs is here you will substantiate your points with the views of these scholars, that this scholar holds this particular view. Now, if you see, if it would have been comment that the US hegemony has declined. Okay, so comment US hegemony has declined. Yes, we could have added these points to substantiate this fact that yes, US hegemony has declined. The facts which substantiate that US hegemony has been declined is US has failed to bring the regime change in Iran despite sanctions. US has failed to bring regime change in North Korea despite sanctions. US has failed to deter Russia from acquiring Crimea, and recently US is not able to deter Russia enough to not go for military buildups along Ukrainian borders. US has failed to deter China from not giving aggressive threats to Taiwan, and when US imposed restrictions and sanctions, China retaliated with the same, and a protectionist policy has been adopted by both. 20 years of war and US withdrawal has brought back Taliban into power. So US has failed to prevent Taliban from acquiring power, and Taliban has made a comeback. So it is seen as what? Again, the US-Vietnam movement, where US has just left, and this has brought Taliban back. In fact, it's a big blot on US diplomacy, whether they will accept it or not. Okay. And US withdrawal from Syria is seen as a challenge to US hegemony, that US has just left, giving strategic depth to Russia. Okay. All these facts are enough to substantiate that yes, US hegemony on decline. If the question would have been to comment, then you would have commented like this, that comment US hegemony on decline. So you would have written an intro. Then you have written, yes, on these points intro could have been, US emerged as the sole superpower or world became unipolar since the end of Cold War, and since then world is under US hegemony. So many scholars have started seeing that yes, US hegemony has declined, and based on these grounds we could have substantiated yes, it has declined. But here it is not this. Here the question is critically examined. So critically examine whether US hegemony has declined or US still commands a lot of influence in world politics. Yes, US still command a lot of influence in world politics, seeing its voting rights in IMF. US still one of the strongest military power in the world. US withdrawal from Afghanistan can be seen as a calculated move, because US now wants to counter China in Asia Pacific. So China is still way ahead to catch US in its intellectual capabilities. And the biggest thing, US commands strong soft power in world politics, which China is devoid of. Okay. So these many points we need to write in. Then comes the structures. I'm not telling you structure, I'm telling you the points. Structure you can see in the PDF, which I'll share, okay, in the link of the video. So structure you can see there. Here I'm discussing the points. Now I hope you can understand to substantiate answer with these points does not require to refer any specific material. It's about having the understanding which you can build by reading the newspapers itself. That's why I've taken this particular question to give you this understanding that what UPSC is expecting. Many times aspirants, because of there's so much of pressure, I know this, because there's so much pressure, telling all these things outside the examination hall is much easier. Sitting in the examination hall and framing the answer is a altogether different set of challenge, because might be UPSC has asked critically examined, we could have given a comment on this. So at that time we'll feel that we have given a right answer for the question, but UPSC is very specific that you need to answer your answer needs to be in perspective of the question, what has been asked. So we need to be very careful that what exactly UPSC has asked in the question. Here it is critically examine, not comment. And critically examine is this, that yes, US hegemony has declined. No, still US commands. US still command a lot of power in world politics, and US is a power to reckon with. And since Biden has come to power, Biden has said US is back, because it was Trump who decided to follow the policy of isolation under its US first policy, and Biden is saying US will going to reclaim the leadership in the world politics. Through this statement we could have ended this is the one way to conclude the answer for this question. Okay, so with this let's move to the next question. So the modernization thesis asserts that affluence breeds stable democracy. Again, a direct question here, that modernization thesis asserts the affluence breeds stable democracy. How do you explain the success of India being the largest democracy as an exceptional case? Okay, so link to the first chapter of your syllabus. Then explain the success of ASEAN as a regional organization. Here we have to explain what success of ASEAN. Why ASEAN is successful? ASEAN was formed on the lines of Eve. Okay. So explain, specifically UPSC is asking, explain the success. What will be the theme we need to take? What will be the theme on which we need to answer this question? Explain the success. Here nothing about SAARC has been asked, but in the end you could have said, we could have written why ASEAN is successful and why SAARC is dysfunctional. Now the theme will revolve around what? Explain the success. The biggest reason for the success of ASEAN is political stability of the region. Okay, but here political stability, and ASEAN is a grouping of democracies. Though Myanmar military coup has raised the doubt, that's why ASEAN grouping are also pressurizing the government, the leadership of Myanmar to restore democracy. But still, if you compare it with SAARC, ASEAN is there is a lot of political stability in ASEAN, and SAARC is dysfunctional. Main reason, Indo-Pak tensions. Second reason, political instability within the region. And third thing is different types of and third reason is different types of political systems within SAARC. So one line of answer will be stability. Another is ASEAN, formed in 1967 during Cold War, and Asian economies tilted towards capitalism way back around the 70s. That's why they are known as Asian tigers. Okay. So on these two lines, the answer needs to be given for this particular question. Third, again, Brexit is in the news, but UPSC is not asked about the complexities of Brexit. India's relation with EU in the context of Brexit. Okay. How it will impact India-EU ties. How Brexit will impact India-EU ties. Okay. So again, through newspapers, everything is coming in the newspapers. Recent so many articles being written on the issue of Brexit and how it can impact the dynamics of India-EU ties. So Brexit will sure going to impact the dynamics of India-UK ties, and Brexit will have its impact on India-EU ties. Here, UK, as UK is out of EU, UK losing weight in world politics, and UK wants to revive what, or UK wants to strengthen Commonwealth, and India is one of the main player of Commonwealth. So this will drift UK more towards India. Okay. FTA, India, UK. Okay. The negotiations are going on, and UK will give, probably UK will understand India's apprehensions, and soon India-UK FTA will be a possibility. And similar is here. India-EU discussions on India-EU FTA are going on from 2006-2007, and India-EU FTA is known as BTIA, Bilateral Trade and Investment Agreement. And there are a lot of issues in BTIA, but now EU will be inclined to go for an FTA with India. Okay. This is one aspect. Explain India's relation with EU in the context of Brexit. Why we say, why there is a cool down in India-EU ties, and India prefers to deal bilaterally with the major economies of EU. The main reason is EU is overly bureaucratic. Okay. And Brexit in EU has increased Euroscepticism, means that there is a challenge to the unity of EU. More and more countries are becoming skeptical to being a party of EU. Right wingers, left wingers have their own issues. The issues of right wingers are the issues of sovereignty. And as Euroscepticism is on rise, the future of EU itself looks bleak. So the other side of the story is India will be more inclined to go for bilateral ties with the major economies like Germany, UK, Italy, France, rather than looking for its integration with EU. Okay, so both aspects we need to touch for giving the answer for this particular question. But again, the question from the current perspective, Brexit was in the news, there were articles, the views of the scholars. Now you need to add the name of the scholars who have what is their view regarding India EU. So if it would have been in GS, this question, the same question UPSC could have asked in GS. There you just need to write in general, but in optional you need to write in with respect to the views of the scholars. Now another mandatory question, another challenge, 5 parts. Knowing you, despite even if you know everything, challenge is to complete in 6-7 minutes. Discuss the strategic implications of India's, and you just have to write in 150 words. Strategic implications of India's Look East policy transforming into Act East policy. What are the strategic implications? Until unless you do understand the dynamics of Look East and Act East, you can't answer this question. This question is not from the current perspective. Yes, Act East is in the news, and question is not discuss Act East. What are the components of Act East? Because Act East has 3 components. I'm sure all of you are well aware of this. Modi government announced Act East in 14, and the 3 components of Act East are 3 C's: commerce, connectivity, culture. Second, commerce, connectivity, culture. Second, expanded the geographical sphere of engagement, and now the focus is the whole of Asia Pacific, and third is development of Northeast. This is Act East. But the question is not write about Act East. discuss the strategic implications of India's Look East transforming into Act East. Strategic implication. First thing, our Look East we announced in 91, and Look East has evolved in phases. 2002 is seen as first phase, 2002 onwards is seen as second phase, till 14 and 14 onwards is Act East or third phase of Look East. Okay, third phase of Look East. So what is the strategic implication of Look East transforming into Act East? Its strategic implication is, so in this you need to write, China is pursuing a policy called string of pearl. According to China, string of pearl is not a geopolitical strategy. It is a China is unfolding string of pearl in the form of MSR, Maritime Silk Route. And according to China, MSR is what? A economic engagement. It's my economic engagement with the countries of South Asia and Southeast Asia. So China's string of pearl, which China is pursuing a economic, China is projecting a economic policy. Just a second. So China projecting that China is pursuing an economic policy, OBOR, which has two components, BRI and MSR. We are seeing MSR as string of pearl. Now India can't sit idle and see China surrounding India from all the sides. Okay, as Indian Ocean region is a sphere of influence of India. Okay, so string of pearl, which according to China is MSR, but according to India is a strategic geopolitical game plan of China, that is string of pearl, through which China is increasing its strategic influence within this region. Now to counter this, India is Act East, because it was Hillary Clinton, the Secretary of State, who said that India should not look east, India needs to act east. Now, I'm not sure how many students are aware of this, that US is pursuing a policy called Pivot to Asia, and US Pivot Asia is seen as the strategic game plan of US. According to China, the US project pivot policy as an economic policy. So according to China, US through pivot is trying to enter into Chinese backyard, and under Act East, India is aligning with the US pivot, and the outcome is Quad. This is the strategic implication, what question is looking about to. Okay, so this we need to refer. Now for this, there is no need to refer so many sources. Again, last time, at least in this video, I'm saying newspaper reading. Okay. Read your newspaper. Though you read newspaper, you read facts in newspaper. UPSC asks analysis. So you need to develop this capability of analyzing the things. Okay. So it's all about analysis. Then philosophical foundation of India's foreign policy evolved during freedom struggle itself. Foreign policy lies in the philosophy of India, Vasudeva Kutumbakam. India's position on waiver of intellectual property rights on COVID vaccines in WTO. Direct question. Explain India's position. Okay. Write about the growing significance of Quad. But here, you can only write about the growing significance if you understand what Quad is. Because for many years, India resisted to accept Quad as a military alliance. The question is now we can say Quad is a military alliance? Because when US proposed Quad, the stand of the US was it's an alliance of democracies. Japanese government of Japan openly accepted it as a military alliance. Only it was India who was not ready to accept or embrace it as a military alliance, and PM Modi in Mamlapuram summit said, we are seeing Quad as an economic alliance, and even China can be a party to Quad, and China is not a democracy. The statement not well taken by President Trump. So the mandate of Quad was not clear. Question is growing significance, and its significance has grown since Galwan clash. And after Galwan clash, India has embraced it as a military alliance. So there is no inhibition. You should not show any inhibition to accept Quad as a military alliance. On what grounds we can say this? Because India accepted or India allowed Australia to be a party to Malabar military exercise. And as now India allowed or India accepted Australia can be a party to Malabar military exercise, it is not wrong to say Quad is a military alliance. But still, after the first virtual summit of Quad, the outcome statement of the summit was Quad is more than a military alliance, and it has number of other objectives. It has also other objectives to achieve, and it should not be seen as a China. It should not be seen as a grouping whose only agenda is to counter China. The China is not ready to accept this narrative of the Quad states. This much we can't write, but the theme will be this: growing significance. Growing significance because China is asserting itself in world politics. Okay. How does the recent takeover of Afghanistan by Taliban impact India's strategic interest? So one question, it was very much expected that UPSC will going to ask something regarding this. How does the recent takeover, 150 word, not an essay on this. Okay. So recent takeover impacts India's strategic interest. Start it again. I'm sure all of you are aware there was a policy called Look North policy, which we started when? Way back in 95. Look North policy failed badly. Why? Because 96 Taliban took over Afghanistan. Taliban lost the political control since US entered into Afghanistan in 2001 under its war against terror. And India decided to re-engage with Afghanistan to reach out to Central Asia because we do not have a direct connectivity with Central Asia. Now India announced the policy of CCAP, Connect Central Asia policy, and huge investments we have already made under our CCAP. And as Taliban has made a comeback, Taliban pro-Pakistan, not going into the dynamics. Why? Taliban pro-Pakistan, for the time being, we are not having that cordial ties with Taliban. So, if India fails to improve its ties with Taliban, then our CCAP will be a failure. Failure of CCAP means our $1 million investments will go waste. This is the biggest challenge in front of India, that one thing took over, as Taliban has took over, one thing, it will impact our economic interest. Second, CCAP will be a failure. Okay, it will cut down our influence and reach to Central Asia. And third, violence and instability can increase within the state of J&K, because last time when Taliban came to power, Pakistan tried to revive militancy in the region. So this is how takeover of Taliban will impact India's interest. Question from the current perspective. So again, as I said, it's a mix of static and dynamic. Any day there can be a question on non-alignment. It will always be relevant. This year it has not been asked. Is it relevant? The question is near about, I guess, few years back the question was, is it relevant? Because PM Modi skipped the summit. It is, you can't say it is not relevant. But this time it is starting, because Nehru's policy of non-alignment is seen as what? Too much of idealism. Was it idealism or was it realism? The question is on this particular debate. Because both opinion prevails that it was too much of idealism. Had we decided to not stick to non-alignment and we would have decided to have good ties with one or the other superpower, China would have never dared to attack India. India was short of friends at that time because of our posture of NAM. So we have failed to achieve anything out of NAM. Another point of view which prevailed, NAM was realism, because through NAM we asserted our political weight way beyond our economic weight, and this was the time when we projected ourselves as a third pole in the world politics. Comment. This is the comment. Your view, how you see NAM. So your comment will be this, that through NAM we protected our hard-earned sovereignty when there was so much of pressure on India to join or take sides we decided to take a independent path or traverse a independent path. Static portion, any day these kind of questions can be asked. Now, current perspective, geostrategic points of contention in the bilateral ties between India and China. It is geostrategic points of contention. Examine. Okay. So many points. So, geostrategic points of contention. There are so many areas where we have divergence with China. So, they have not asked all the areas. Now we have an issue of trade deficit also. We have an issue that China not supports India's entry in UN as a permanent member and a permanent member in NSG. A question is not asked that so many areas on which we have divergence and tensions with China. Question is, examine the geostrategic point of contention. Means, geostrategic means the geographic direction of states' foreign policy. Means issues of LAC, issue of McMahon line, issue of Johnson line, issue of Tibet, issue of Shimla agreement which was signed way back in 1914. So geostrategic points of contention, not a geo-economic point of contention. Geo-economic point of contention would have been, we are running high trade deficit with China and China is not opening its market for Indian goods, and India can't reduce the entry of Chinese goods because we do not have the manufacturing capabilities, and it will lead to inflation, and the reason why we are not joining RCEP. These things you should not have written in this particular answer because it is geostrategic, not geo-economic. Okay. So next is brief analysis of ethnic conflicts. Same question could have been there in internal security, and I hope if you are aware of the issue of Northeast insurgency, easily you can write an answer for this question. And this is the reason why we need pro-Indian governments in Bangladesh and Myanmar, reason why India is not that critical to the military leadership of Myanmar. Why South Asia is considered as world politically and economically least integrated? Okay, politically because of different political regimes. Okay, different kind of political regime. Only if you see the South Asia, the only democracy which has the only state where democracy has survived is India, and democracy is very fragile in all of the South Asian countries. You can see Pakistan is seen as deep state. Taliban has just took over through violence. Taliban wants to carve out an Islamic emirate. Bhutan is constitutional monarchy. Nepal constitution making process completed in 15. Still issue of Madesi is there. Civil war in Sri Lanka ended in 15. Still the issue of implementation of 13th Amendment. Coups in Bangladesh. Politics has stabilized since 2009. So one of the reason is democracy is fragile and economically least integrated because of multiple reasons, and one that's the reason why SAFTA has not able to lead to that kind of economic integration. Okay. Almost similar kind of exports they have. Okay, look forward for unilateral concessions from India. So these are the factors which these are the basic things which are there, nothing related to current. A very static question, why South Asia is considered as world's politically least integrated. So next is the very interesting question, how do constituent states influence the foreign policy? A direct question on para diplomacy. So refer PDF to know more about para diplomacy. Okay, role of states influencing the foreign policy, though we always say 2 hours should not be the criteria in determining the foreign policy, because Foreign policy is to serve national interest and religion can't be the criteria to influence the policy, but para-diplomacy has gained a lot of ground, especially under this government, because the present PM himself was the CM for so many years. So he always wanted that states should have a say. So para-diplomacy has gained ground. Then examine the evolution of India's role in global nuclear order. Examine the evolution. So to understand this, you should have been aware of issues like PTBT, NPT, CTBT, why India did the nuclear weapon test and all. Direct question, nothing technical. The relations between India and Russia are rooted in history, mutual trust, mutually beneficial cooperation discussed. So things goes way back to Cold War. Still Russia, very important in our scheme of things. 65% of the arsenal from Russia, S-400 from Russia. With Russia, we have mechanism of joint collaborations in our defense ties. Lot of trust. Russia support comes without any conditionalities, and Russia is very important to achieve the objective of indigenization of our defense capabilities. All these things need to be written here. So a direct question. Sustainable development goals set by UN. Okay. Drivers of India's new interest in Africa. Easy question to attempt. So I refer PDF. So I hope I'm able to give you the clarity how to prepare for your PSIR paper-II. Don't get carried away. Rely on newspapers. Understand the things. Okay. It's not about facts. It's about analysis. Where UPSC is asking analysis. How to prepare for answer writing. Preparing and attempting the mains paper in the real environment are two different things. Sooner you will realize this, better it will. So prepare every topic as if you have to write this in your mains. Then you will be more focused and you will not get carried away digging too deep in every issue. Okay. So this is the discussion of our PSIR mains 2001 paper 2.